What does travel insurance actually cover a 70-year-old for? Not what does it cost. What does it cover? Because the price is the only number a comparison site puts in front of you, and it is the one that matters least. Here is the same trip quoted twice. 2 weeks in France, $6,000 insured, same day, same screen. Only the age changes. At 60, the cheapest policy is $235. At 85, $617. 2.5 times more. That is the story everybody tells about insurance and age, and it is true. It is also the least useful thing on the page because the price is filed with regulators. Every site shows you the same number, so there is nothing there to shop for. What nobody shows you is that the amount of coverage you are allowed to buy falls as you get older. On one product I priced, an 80-year-old is permitted to buy 1% of what a 64-year-old can. That is not a discount. That is a ceiling, and this video is about finding yours. Nobody checks the ceiling, and there is a good reason why. We assume insurance is insurance. You buy a policy, the policy pays, and age changes the price rather than the product. That is how car insurance works. That is how home insurance works. The other assumption is Medicare, and this one costs people real money. Here is the sentence from Medicare's own site. Medicare usually doesn't cover healthcare while you're traveling outside the US. Not a gap, not a reduced rate. There is a Medigap benefit that helps, and it is smaller than it sounds. 80% after a deductible, and it stops at $50,000 for the rest of your life. Send a single $50,000 bill through it, and you are $10,200 short, with the lifetime cap now spent. So the travel policy is doing more work than most people think, which is exactly why its limit is worth knowing. So I went and bought the quotes. Not brochures, real quote engines with a real trip in them. 14 nights, United States to France, $6,000 insured, 90 days out, one traveler, Florida. Then one field moves 6 times, from 60 up to 85. 46 policies at every age, through Squaremouth. Then the whole thing again through Insure My Trip, because one source is not evidence. Then straight to a carrier's own website to check the comparison sites were not marking anything up. They were not. $460 on the site, $460 on the carrier's own page. 47 matched quotes, and all 47 agreed. That is what I mean when I say the price is settled. It is the same everywhere, and it is the last thing this video will spend time on. Here is one plan, quoted 6 times, at 6 ages. Nothing changed but the birthday. Its price rises by a factor of 1.89, 60 to 85. On a table sorted by price, that is the gentlest curve in the entire set. It looks like the plan that treats older travelers best. Now here's the most that same plan will pay toward an emergency medical bill. At 60, $150,000. At 70, $15,000. At 80, $10,000. Same plan, same name on the same results page. The premium climbs 89% while the coverage falls 93%. That is what a ceiling looks like, and nothing on the comparison card tells you it is there. You would only find it by quoting the same plan 6 times and reading the small column. Now, this does not happen everywhere, and I have to be careful with you here. Of the 5 products I could check properly, 3 cut the maximum as you age. 2 do not. Trowick's Pathway. Essential is a flat $25,000 at every age from 60 to 85. It never moves. And GeoBlue sold an 85-year-old a $1 million medical maximum for $580. That is 20 times the coverage of the cheapest thing on the comparison panel at that age, for $36 less. Before that sounds like a recommendation, it is not, and here is why. GeoBlue is travel medical. It pays doctors. Cancel your trip, and it refunds you nothing, not $1 of your $6,000. The comprehensive plans on the comparison site do both, and that is what you are paying the difference for. 2 products answering 2 different fears. Who pays if I am hurt, and who pays if I cannot go? I am not telling you which to buy. I am telling you they are not the same row, and the cheapest row is often not the same product as the one above it. But the comparison does tell you something useful. The coverage is not expensive. At $85, going from $50,000 of coverage to $1 million costs $111. So when a plan sells an older traveler $10,000 of coverage, that is not the insurer running out of room to price the risk. It is a decision. So it is not an industry rule, and anyone who tells you it is has not checked. It is common enough that you have to look. There is a second thing nobody shows you, and unlike the ceiling, this one expires. 35 of the 46 plans will waive your pre-existing conditions, which for most people over 65 is the entire reason to buy. Every one of them puts a deadline on it, and the deadline does not run from your departure date. It runs from the day you paid your deposit. From the same deposit, those deadlines land between 13 and 21 days. 24 of the 35 are inside 15. Book a cruise in January for October, take 3 weeks to think about the insurance, and the waiver is gone. On every plan here, at any price. So there are your two hidden numbers: how much coverage you may buy and how long you have to buy it. The first one falls quietly as you age. The second one expires about 2 weeks after you put money down. Neither is on the card you are shown. Which leaves two things worth checking before you buy, and the price is not one of them. First, the medical maximum, the plan will actually sell someone your age, not the headline number on the card, the number in your age band. Seven Corners publishes theirs on their own website. Up to 64, $1 million. 65 to 79, 100,000. 80 and over, 10,000. An 80-year-old pays 47% more than a 75-year-old for a tenth of the coverage. Second, the date you paid your deposit. That is when your waiver clock started, and it is probably shorter than 3 weeks. If you only remember one thing from this video, remember that the clock started when the money moved, not when the plane leaves. Two honest limits before you go anywhere with this. It is one state, Florida. I requoted the same trip in 6 states, and the price barely moved, but the menu did. 44 plans for sale in Florida, 25 in Washington. And 6 of the 13 companies I set out to price never appeared on either comparison site at all. I am telling you that rather than showing you 7 and calling it the market. So we built a free checker, and it is in the description. You give it your age and the date you paid your deposit. It gives you back your waiver deadline as an actual date for each carrier that publishes one. Then it checks your age against every published ceiling we could find and tells you which have closed over your head. It will not tell you which policy to buy, and that is deliberate. Nobody honest can without knowing your health and your trip. What it can do is tell you what is still on the shelf and how long you have. Every figure on it links back to the quote or the carrier page it came from, including the date. Because this was never really about insurance for older travelers. It is about a market that answers the question you asked loudly and never mentions the one you did not know to ask. The price is the number on the front. It is filed, it is public, and it is the same everywhere you look. The ceiling is not on the front of anything. That's what the data says about travel insurance for seniors. The free coverage ceiling checker and every source are linked in the description below. If you're planning a trip, we have full city guides waiting for you, and they are built the same way, on real numbers. And if you haven't yet, subscribe so you don't miss it. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.